You are watching 420 Central TV, Fridays at 4:20, hosted by Rory Taylor. On this week's episode, we are talking stigma, green news, event coverage. Stay tuned. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And let's join the conversation.
Good afternoon, it's 4:20 on Friday and it's the first of our broadcasts for the year, so let's get to the bell. Thank you. So this afternoon I just want to say a very warm welcome to all of you, and I want to thank you very much for the support we got during the course of last year, and more especially this afternoon to welcome you to 2023. I hope it's a good year for all of you. We're certainly optimistic and have got a whole lot of ideas up our sleeves, so stay tuned, enjoy the ride with us, and I'll see you on the other side of this. So, one of the issues I think that faces us head on and has for a long time is the idea of stigma. And I just wanted to run through some written words on the idea of stigma. It's a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance or quality or lack of quality in a person. Stigma of having gone to prison will always be with me, as one of the quotes from somebody we chatted to. And that's, if you think about it, that's as harsh as it is, having a stigma that you have to live with. In Christian tradition, marks corresponding with those left on Jesus' body found by the crucifixion, said to have been impressed by divine favour on the bodies of St. Francis of Assisi and others. A visible sign of characteristic or disease, knee deformities or other stigma of childhood rickets or a mark or spot on the skin. You've seen people that have got marks on their faces and or other parts of their body. I think that's what they're referring to. But the nicest part and the most interesting part for me is the fact that in a flower, the part of the pistil that receives the pollen during pollination, that's a stigma. The stigma is a sticky stem of the pistil of a female reproductive system in a plant. It's the portion of the ovary where pollen germinates and is essential for plant reproduction. So that's the only time we really want to know or hear about stigma when it comes to cannabis. But let's take a look and see where stigma began when it came to cannabis. It started at the beginning of the 20th century. It was around the time where the opium crisis was going on around the world. The Federal Food and Drug Acts of 1906 made it a requirement to label over-the-counter medicines that were containing cannabis and other substances such as heroin and cocaine. Odd that we get chucked in there. In spite of a long history of being stigmatized, marijuana started to make progress in altering this image. No longer does it carry a stigma of being demonized and as a deviant substance. Racial tensions and political agendas were the primary driving force originally around the construction of the stigma for marijuana. In South Africa, we just dropped in on Wikipedia to have a look, and there were some interesting things that they said there. Cannabis is thought to have been introduced to Africa by the early Arab and or Indian traders. It was already in popular use in South Africa by the indigenous Khoisan and the Bantu people prior to European settlement. And that would have been 1652, so well before then it was being used on the continent. And as stated in a book by Hazel Crompton, it was traditionally used by the Basotho to ease childbirth. There's a lot of old Afrikaner recipes for teas and foods that exist which make the plant an important part of what they used when they were travelling from through the trek years. They were making use of cannabis and or recipes that were born out of cannabis. And then we have a look at a little bit of the statistical data. The reported number of cannabis users in South Africa in 2022, it was 2.2 million people in 2004. And that's odd because in 2004 there was approximately 48 million people, and if you look across the line, generally they say 10% of the population. So in my mind, off the mark already, we probably have had many more users of cannabis at the time. Again, the research in 2008 said 3.2 million. And at that time, Interpol rated South Africa as the fourth largest producer of cannabis in the world. And the Institute for Security Studies reported that most cannabis seized in the UK origins were South Africa. Take a look at the video we put together for you just to get a bit of an understanding of where the stigma was designed and brought into being.
The marijuana revolution could very easily change the country, but there's a lot standing in the way. To understand why the status of pot is so contested, we need to trace the long, strange trip, how cannabis became America's most controversial and lucrative plant.
Marijuana and the United States go hand in hand. Our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and a number of others, grew what was called Indian hemp.
George Washington had over 100 hemp plants at Mount Vernon.
The hemp grown by our first American presidents was an industrial cash crop, perfect for making strong fiber that could be used for rope, sails, clothing, even paper, but not for smoking.
The plants that you use to make the rope and the fiber have low THC levels and they don't get people high.
While some early Americans made a fortune cultivating cannabis for industrial use, others began making big profits selling it as medicine.
Cannabis was a major ingredient in medicines that were recommended for use in insomnia, menstrual cramps, nausea, muscle spasms, depression.
But it wasn't until the 20th century that pot gained momentum as a recreational drug in America.
Essentially, it was this drug of the subculture. It was a drug that was popular among jazz musicians. It was a drug that was used by Mexican immigrants in the American Southwest.
Those against the drug used pot's association with both groups to frighten mainstream America.
The first thing that they did, which is very important, is that they changed the name to marijuana. They made it sound like a Spanish word so that people would start thinking about the Mexican migrant workers and the black jazz musicians who are smoking this plant, and, oh, they're gonna rape your white women, and we have to make this illegal.
The backlash grew during the Great Depression, and in the mid-1930s, states looked to the federal government to stop the drug from spreading.
The first drug czar, a guy named Harry J. Anslinger, totally vilified marijuana.
95% of all addiction is caused by bad association.
Concern about its use even led the government to fund the 1936 anti-marijuana film, Reefer Madness.
It was designed to terrify you into never imagining trying marijuana, because if you did, one time could turn you into a drug-addicted zombie.
The campaign against the so-called evil weed culminated in Congress passing the Marijuana Tax Act in 1937, which essentially prohibited the sale and use of cannabis throughout America. The efforts helped keep pot's popularity underground, where marijuana remained popular among artists, musicians, and poets.
Marijuana came out of the beat generation and jazz in the 1950s. And then they sort of brought it into the counterculture and the emerging hippie scene.
The avant-garde who had been smoking marijuana as part of their lifestyle. They were the leaders of the anti-war movement.
As the Vietnam War divided America, smoking marijuana was now seen as a political act.
Marijuana should be made legal now! Now!
Many in the conservative chain of command believed that to quash the anti-war protesters, you had to go after their drug of choice.
Drugs are alarmingly on the increase in use among our young people. This is a national problem. It requires an urgent action on the part of the federal government.
In 1970, President Richard Nixon got Congress to pass a new drug law that identified pot as a menace to public health.
Nixon administration placed marijuana in Schedule I with heroin and LSD and a whole bunch of other really dangerous addictive drugs.
If Nixon launched the war on drugs, It was Ronald Reagan who picked up the torch and ran with it a decade later, appointing his wife Nancy its spokesperson. Her message was clear.
Just say no.
So you can see by that there's been a war on cannabis and people's perceptions of cannabis for a really, really long time. And that stigma is something that's been attached to us for far too long. And just to close out on the stigma space, we chatted to 2 South Africans and got them to give just a little bit of insight on stigma and what it means to them. Listen to this.
Hey there, my 420 Central TV people. My name is LPS, a singer-songwriter from South Africa. What stigma is to me is ignorance, misunderstanding, and something that needs to be eradicated. It is 2023, and it is about time that we learn to embrace what we may not see as the norm personally, so that we can understand each other better. From religion to culture, and even our beloved cannabis. Educate and entrench yourself in what it is all about, and you may actually find a common ground. Peace, love, and light.
Yo, greetings. This is King Tafari from Soldier Love. My understanding of stigma is like, I mean, I've gone to prison, I've went to jail, and the embarrassment of having just to be able to just know that I'll always have that with me, of having to have been bullied that side of the stuff that happens around there. It's just that thing that'll always be with me. That's my understanding of what stigma is all about, of something that is not very pleasant that I've experienced, and I'll always carry it around, just not so happy, the disgrace in my family to know that I went to jail, all of that, just that alone, or even just having to talk about it, or even just say it, even my friends look at you like, you really been to jail? So yeah, it's it just carries you everywhere. It's like a stench,
So you can understand from that there's a big challenge for us when it comes to stigma and what stigma means to society. So done with stigma, we've got a really interesting newsreel for you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this.
Today's an exciting day because it's the first ever Cannabis Drinks Expo.
Thank you, sir.
We are sold out. It's 1,000 people attending here.
This place is packed with people.
It is.
Did you expect this?
Yes.
This is for the weekend warriors, for the professional athletes, anybody who really is just thirsty,
Our beverages don't have that cannabis taste that a lot of people think that they're going to get.
The drinks taste delicious, they work great, and it's just a nice feeling.
How is it? Very good. Wow.
The size of the crowd says it all. Cannabis could be the next big frontier in the beverage world. But it wasn't a natural fit. Every single one of these drinks is made with an ingredient that doesn't dissolve in water.
Our first beverage, you could turn it upside down and you'd see that cannabis go up and down.
THC drinks were a little bit like salad dressing. So they had to be shaken, and a lot of them didn't taste or smell that good.
It all comes back to a simple truth. Oil and water don't mix.
It's fat-based, and so it does not mix well once you add it to beverages.
Though it starts out as the green plant we all recognize, the cannabis we're talking about gets distilled into a thick oil that's nearly solid at room temperature. It mixes well with the makings of chocolate, which are also fat-based, so companies like Stillwater Ingredients hired experts from the candy industry.
We've solved it. I feel very confident saying that.
Before our eyes, they pour these crystals into a glass of water, and they appear to dissolve.
Lipids cannot dissolve in water, but what you can do is coat them in a surfactant and then enable them to be water compatible.
Industrial sonomechanics makes this contraption that sends sound waves through the cannabis oil to break it up into tiny particles, then coat them with a slippery substance that stays suspended in water.
And it disappears.
It's nanotechnology, and it's the solution that's unlocked a whole new kind of adult beverage.
Drinking alcohol has been around forever, and it's so familiar to everybody, so why shouldn't drinking cannabis be just the same?
Keef makes cannabis cola, root beer, and sparkling water for those who want a wave of refreshment with a splash of THC.
You will actually tend to feel the effects within 15 to 30 minutes, and more than anything, you can cheers with it.
Cheers and bottoms up with the cannabis drinks from Tinley, all modeled after your neighborhood bar.
Our whole approach is an alcohol-inspired type strategy. So we've got ready-to-drink tonics, Stone Daisy, which would be compared to a margarita.
They offered tastings here at the show of samples without cannabis.
Ice cold. Oh yeah, this is ice cold.
There are cocktails and shots.
Oh, it smells very cinnamony.
Oh yeah, and it tastes good too.
It may be no surprise the industry's going after a specific customer, those who are less experienced with cannabis but love trying new drinks.
Craft beer consumers are perfect for cannabis drinks because they're into experimenting new beverages.
And though there is hemp beer and weed wine, there's one thing you won't find. Drinks can have cannabis or they can have alcohol, but they can't have both.
Alcohol, when you drink too much of it, you're supposed to throw up. That's what stops you from being poisoned. And THC and CBD literally stop you from throwing up.
It's the ultimate irony. Stopping nausea was a major reason marijuana was first legalized for medical use. Because remember, cannabis isn't only about getting high.
Our idea is to bring CBD into the sports world.
Now legal in all 50 states, hemp-derived CBD is making its way into seemingly everything, including this sports drink.
It really is calming. It helps with pain, inflammation.
Guardian taps into a whole other market for these drinks, those looking to use cannabis for wellness.
So we wanted to go with the all organic, no refined sugar.
They're going after the same crowd as Eat Green.
People come to cannabis to help them with their health. I don't want to give someone diabetes while trying to help them combat Alzheimer's.
Eat Green makes cold-pressed juices in 3 different versions.
Is this the packaging right here?
Yes, so this is our hemp packaging.
The hemp drinks can be sold anywhere.
The first thing I smell is watermelon. Is there real watermelon in here?
Real watermelon. We use all organic produce.
But at dispensaries, they sell THC versions, one with a little and one with a lot. Cannabis products can't cross state lines, so all these drinks are made and sold in California, at least for now.
And tomorrow, the world?
The whole world.
It's an interesting show, and I like to always have a look at what's happening internationally, because to see some of the packaging, to see the level of interest, to see the mix of person that's attending these shows is phenomenal. And if we can get ourselves within this country to move and shift to that level, and I think there are people that are at that level, but the sooner we can start pursuing it in such a consumer-friendly way, the better for all of us. So, done with the news, and what I'd like to do is run you a little reel on our efforts at the Smoking Dragon and a little bit of information about how that went down.
420 Central is who we at, Cannabis Care. We're nice headquartered by the meets Drakensberg. We got a cornucopia of all of our stuff, our variations from THC to CBD. But before we get to that, scan the QR code, man. You should become a member. Get everything we got. We got some pre-rolls, got some milkshake syrup, amongst other things. All you gotta do is just scan the QR code and be part of our membership. Hello.
Hi, it's me again. I can't seem to get a hold of you, so here goes. There's that thing happening at Top Start tonight, and I was wondering if maybe you'd like to go. So please let me know, give me a call or leave a message, whatever.
She loves teddy bears and bunny rabbits, puppy dogs with dirty habits, golden hair that flows when she moves, taller than me in her new designer shoes.
That's okay, we're not leaving the car.
I've been thinking about scoring after midnight driving. You're the one I'm adoring after midnight driving. One look at you is inspiring me after midnight driving. The way you leave me smiling after midnight driving. I've been thinking about scoring after midnight driving. You're the one I'm adoring after midnight driving. One look at you is inspiring me after midnight driving. The way you leave me smiling, you know you do. You know you do.
And Positive Vibrations, brought to you by the Drakensberg Amphitheater. Thank you so much to Smoking Dragon for this beautiful experience. Hashtag vibrations.
We can probably still make it if we try. And you don't want to miss this one. It's a good movie.
So that's all we've got for you this week. I hope you enjoyed the show. It's our first back. It's great to have the team around us. Next week we'll be showing you a little bit more about our new space. We've got a new space that we're operating from, and it's coming together nicely. Perhaps we can give you one or two bits of visual on the closeout. Enjoy your week, have a cool weekend, and we'll see you back next week. Ciao for now.